Here we go. So you all know me. What you may not know is maybe you're aware that in 2017, when these hills were alive and just ablaze with fire, and we were surrounded in Sonoma Valley, um, but we were also on fire in Mendocino, Lake, Napa counties, and it was truly like it is for you, it was truly stunning, and even though we had a clue from the Valley Fire in 2015, we really did not understand or we that something like this was even possible. It blew everyone's mind. 8,900 structures across 4 counties, 24 days, 43 people lost their lives. It was so stunning that another group of people actually started our parent organization, not after the fire, as a regional nonprofit called Rebuild North Bay Foundation, which is how 13 months later, we came to sit with Paradise and they started Rebuild Paradise Foundation. And the one thing that I knew is just finding a lane and figuring out, where I should be or what should I be doing or what's my role or even like mapping it out. Like, what are other people doing? Because I knew from the very beginning, I had learned this during our fires. What I didn't want to do was something like during the fire, I didn't want to deliver food to the same people who already had food, right? I actually wanted to do anything that had something to do with a gap. If it was unsexy, perfect. I'm there. You want a wall built? Got it. 2017, not a sexy time to build a wall. Too bad. That's what they needed. Fire survivors wanted and needed it. But I can tell you that it often felt it's very hard to do leadership and to undergo trauma at the same time. There's a reason why we lost so many heads of organizations and CEOs after our fires. They just said, I cannot rebuild my house and my community and also keep this job. And I have since learned that that is not an uncommon response at all. I was fortunate that I did not lose my home in 2017, and had I lost my home, I actually don't know that I could have done this. I don't think I would have had the capacity. I don't think my family could have had the capacity. I don't know. And I was amazed that Charles could do it, the founder of Rebuild Paradise Foundation, and do it so well, and rebuild his home at the same time. Um, but there's just a particular sort of lostness to the very beginning of an organization, and I'm going to say that I am positive that it took me about 2 years before I started to feel my feet, till I started to go, "Okay, here's my lane," and I can also tell you that as soon as I thought I had it down, it would change, which I found annoying because I like to be competent, right? And I was like, "Oh, I got this," and it reminded me very much of being a new mom. But I was like, "Oh, okay," and then every 6 weeks with a newborn, it would be like, well, let me show you something new that you have to learn." That sort of an absolute discomfort, in the very beginning was so hard, I am going to introduce you to the panel, but I will also say this, and we'll all go down, that recently in LA, well, not recently, maybe like 6 or 7 months ago, I was sitting with 2 people who were recruiting for a new organization that was being started. It's none of these people, and they said to me, "Oh, well, this is what we want." They showed me their list of things, the qualities that they wanted in the person they were going to choose, and then they said to me, "What we really want is a Jennifer." And I said to them, "Well, I was not a Jennifer 7 years ago, 7.5 years ago, not a chance. What I had was social capital. What I had was dedication. I had a willingness to learn the space of disaster. But this is also why we also advocate for people who are local to actually take on these really hard roles. And then what we should do is help them, like in any way we can, find their way of being." And so this is a panel that I picked. You will notice that a lot of these startups actually have not females. We have a lot of women in this space. Not at the very tippy top, note that, but all throughout the rest of it, we do have a lot of women in this space. Um, I'm going to have them introduce themselves. I chose them all for very specific reasons, but we're going to talk about how this has gone for us. What are the really hard parts of it? How is it hard to be patient with ourselves? I'm glad we're coming after Katie because then there can be honesty too, which is good. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you. So please introduce yourself. We'll start with you, Christine.
Hi all, and this is my passport photo. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for to all the after the fire team for hosting this convening, for inviting us into the fold. Day one, day zero, kind of anticipating that this would be something we needed, for inviting us, bringing us into this community. I'm Christine. I have the great privilege of serving on the Department of Angels team, which you heard from Miguel Santana, one of our co-founders, on Tuesday, is one of the startups that arose in the aftermath of the LA fires in January. Just a little bit about me. I am a policy advocate and lawyer by training, but not the useful kind of lawyer. So don't ask me any questions because I won't know the answers. But I'm also born and bred in LA and not directly impacted. And to what you just said about having the capacity to serve, I really think it's really my deep privilege and joy to be able to do this, to have the energy to do it. I couldn't do it without my team, many of whom are sitting here. And many of our community partners and mentors are like all here in this room. And I'm so happy to be here with you all.
Nicole, not really a startup in that disaster, a little different. But go ahead.
And that's my AI photo that Jennifer
I made that.
because I couldn't be bothered.
And she said, I live in Hawaii. I do not own a black turtleneck. And I am like, I am a busy woman. So now you do.
Oh boy. So I was up here earlier. Nicole Huguenin. I'm I think 10-year settler on Maui, and I like to people like to say I'm an executive director, but really I'm just the secretary for a lot of aunties that get a lot of shit done. It's the best way to put it. Sorry for swearing. And I also am from born and bred in Silicon Valley, so I have that in my blood, and I like to use it for good. Thankfully, I was born in the age when open source was still around, and like Craig Newmark was still like hot stuff with Craigslist. So I got a little bit of that in me too. Go.
I'm Jen. I've met many of you, and I'm the director of Rebuild Paradise Foundation. I did not lose my home in the campfire in Paradise. I actually didn't even live there. And Jen has encouraged me to tell like a little bit of a different of my why. I lived in Colorado Springs during the fire, and Paradise was my hometown. When I was 10 years old, my mother, who was a widow, moved us there after the loss of my father. We were actually in Southern California, and she wanted us to be in a safe town. And you can imagine, as a child living in Mojave Desert and then moving up to Paradise, California, in my mind, it was the most beautiful place on earth. Blue skies, big trees. And the moment we got there, our family was loved. They knew we had lost our father. And that is my first memory of that town. And years later, unfortunately, my brother got sick. He had an inoperable brain tumor. And the community that I learned to love donated money so he could have experimental treatment in Texas. People shaved their heads. And this is once again the community that I love and know. I landed in Colorado where my family, I had my children. During that time, my sister unexpectedly passed. And once again, the community helped raise money for us to adopt her daughter. So here I have this town from all that I can ever know or remember has helped and been by my side. And then it burned to the ground. And I was far away and couldn't help. So I tried helping, sending money, gift cards. I went to visit the town thinking this is my farewell, and all I knew was that I was home. And I asked my husband for us to move there because it's the only way I knew to help was to live there, and I didn't know what I was doing. It was just Goodlin party of 6. We weren't with anybody. We had no clue. We immediately needed help upon moving there. We lived in a trailer for 2.5 years. But that is my why. So you better believe when I see my neighbors struggling with insurance, with getting into their home, I will fight for them because that community has fought for me my whole life.
Thank you, Jen.
I always love the stories of the why. And I was doing an interview like many of you yesterday with the Washington Post, and he's like, "Oh, Jen, we've talked a lot, but you've never told me your fire story." And I'm not going to tell it now, but I'm going to say that it so resonated for me that it was a place. This is the place that raised me. And I was absolutely certain that I would do whatever it took, whatever these people needed, whatever this community needed in order to get them home. And I think that for all of us up here, there is a why. There's a deep-seated why that we will be water through boulders, no matter what it takes to actually get it done. But it's also why we have to be there for each other. So I love your why. So thank you for being vulnerable. I appreciate that. Okay. Do you want to do your slides and then I'll go on to my questions?
I would love to. So I just want to share a little reflection from it's actually now our first 7 months, 8 months into recovery from our fires, lessons we've learned from being on the ground and in community and learning from everyone on this stage and in this room. So just a little background. The Department of Angels is an independent nonprofit that was formed in the immediate aftermath of the fires in January in LA with a mission to make sure that the fire impacted communities are the ones in the driver's seat of the recovery, that the recovery is on their terms and that they have the resources and the support and the know-how that they need to drive that forward and thrive. We work at the nexus of we blend community organizing, policy advocacy, and expert informed solutions. And we really try to be a trusted link across different silos to convert crisis into opportunity for really community driven recovery because no one should navigate this alone. So want to call the theme, do our homework. And something that was an immediate lesson after our fires is that it takes all kinds of leaders that have had to step up, whether it's neighborhood reps and block captains, neighbors linking arms with neighbors to grieve together, or people like us who want to make sure that survivor experiences are informing the system's response and the system's change needed to really advance their recovery on survivor terms. And that to us is really what we understand as Ohana in Action, which is to say it takes all different leaders and community members, supporters, helpers, friends, family, bonded in trust, working together, united in hope, and with a shared vision for recovery. And as we have come together in forming our recovery community, there are a few takeaways I want to share with you all. So the first lesson is listen first and act second. And disaster startups, as I'm sure all of you can attest to, have to build their lane, and we're still building ours. We have learned by listening really deeply and repeatedly to the community that we're serving. One way we are listening is we have committed to doing on a quarterly basis the only statistically significant needs assessment of survivors across the fire communities. So to invoke something Keanu said on Tuesday, we're investing in data. And what we're doing is pairing the lessons from that data with on the ground leader insights to pinpoint different gaps in recovery. What is actually gaps? And that's really important because we want to make sure that there aren't solutions that actually miss the mark, aren't actually what survivors need, are duplicating to what you said about when you were starting, and are actually kind of moving the ball forward. So really, really listening before acting. The second lesson for us has been to build bridges, to build social capital, to kind of bring connection across different silos, different actors, different communities. Because recovery, as we all know, isn't just about doing the work. It's about connecting the right people, resources, and timing so that the whole ecosystem is really working better. A couple ways that we have worked to serve as connectors is one, starting with our small and mighty staff team, a few of whom are here today. We are a mixed team of survivors and policy experts and organizers, all working to align grassroots action with systems change. And so kind of seeing across the system. We also work to connect by doing little convenings like this, which is so important, bringing people across silos to share information and spur discussion among them. And of course, this is important because, especially in large, diverse communities like we have in LA, Scaling recovery requires coordination if it's going to be done equitably. The third lesson is I'm going to name integrity in the long game. It's really, really easy to be reactive in disaster recovery, as I'm sure all of us know so deeply, but it's so much harder, but more important to stay grounded in our values when the urgency is so high. A few ways we've tried to practice this, which is really hard, is staying in our lane, which we're building. So with humility, like this is hard, but staying in our lane when funding and politics and public pressure are pulling us elsewhere is one way to really try to stay grounded. Another way is to really link arms with direct services providers so that survivors are getting both immediate help and kind of the longer term change they need kind of all in one go, making sure doing what we can to make sure that's integrated. And third is really investing in building the strength of community organizations, our partners, many of whom are in this room, to make sure that they can be effective over the long run, to stand behind and with them to do that. And this is, of course, important because it sustains the trust that is integral to everything that we need to do for recovery, to do that in community, and make sure that we can kind of stay through to the long run. Make sure that survivors are leaders, not just being served. And so to wrap it up, these kind of three lessons so far have been really grounding and really important, that if we listen, if we connect for impact, if we really stay true to our values, keep integrity over the long term, like those have been some early lessons and keys to make sure that recovery is not just survivors coming back, but really recovering stronger.
I love that. Thank you. Actually, you bring up some good points, and I would like to move. Actually, I would like for you to also talk about what are the values of your organization, and what does that look like in your lane, Nicole?
I'm scrappy. That was a
I
standout.
know she's so scrappy. I really, really love it, though. She is. It's like she's scrappy.
Our values are to walk alongside folks, and um, that skill, I think, brings out the other values, right? And so I can say from my personal value is, as a former high school teacher, I am constantly looking for the D students that would become president. Um, and and so in that listening, that informs my listening. And so from there, I'm if it's a volunteer or a fire survivor or someone, right now in my home, I have someone that lost their job and hasn't been able to recover, because the trauma really impacted their body, from running from the fire. And we're 2 years out, and he is so far behind. His car was going to be repoed just last week. So he's staying in my house for free. And yet I sit with him at dinner, and this man has so many ideas, so many ideas. And uh and yet the world's kind of pushed him and said, "Well, it's your fault. You don't have a job anymore. You should have had it by now. We're 2 years out." And so I'm listening for those ideas. And I think I've personally consistently done that since the start. And I could talk many many stories on that. Um, Other values, I'm trying to think of other, yeah, go ahead.
Maybe just talk about your dedication to the free economy, and I'll move to Jen. But because I do think that it's very helpful. And then one of the questions that I
Yeah,
come back to for all three of you, that we need to talk about is the role of social media in that too.
yeah. I wouldn't say there's a free economy out there, but we definitely believe, I was really excited to see the presentation. Generosity, yeah. The presentation on social capital, because we really do believe that there's many forms of currencies. And sometimes, not all the times, we have to devalue cash so that other values can be also felt. And in that, though, I think with what we've done is we've really listened to um, not just survivors, just anyone in need, and really heard they want choice, right? So we've been able to build lockers to like Amazon lockers, pickup lockers. We've been able to do that for people to pick up their aid on their time, not on our time when we're employing a staff from 10 to 2 in the middle of the day. So if a family's working 2 jobs, which most families do on Maui, they can come and pick it up after they're done working at the airport. And we're hoping to get 4 more of those out in the community. But what that does is it helps people practice choice at a very small scale, but just that practice helps for those bigger decisions. And I think when you're dealing with trauma, that's what we're always looking for is how do we build. Give you another example though too. Right after actually today's Thursday, so they're still meeting. There's this group of people that came through us that meet every Thursday since the fires, and they're developing air quality monitors. We have them in a couple of Tutu's homes that this one Tutu like barely leaves her house ever. But because she has an air monitor now, it actually, if it beeps at all, she calls us. And it's actually become this point for her to say, oh, I should be calling and getting help. And that team still meets. We're not part of it, but we helped initiate it. And I think that's what we really do is we listen and share. I think for us, I heard in social media just the other day, if you want to change the world, share your idea, not own it. And that's something that we really hold true. Yeah.
It's Maui rapid response, by the way. So it's like whatever is needed in that moment, and that's one of the values is that she puts it out there to ask the universe for what all these people need, and I think that that's a lot of faith in the universe too. So that's
And
value.
we built I think Good 360s here, but like that we've had big partners and we have small partners, but everything that we've built thus far is built to share. So we have another I think I talked about the reloadable card program through the Esther app. That card can have any agency on it. So for us, in the startup world, that's us sharing. But from say a philanthropy mind, that the data behind all that can easily be shared. And I actually then don't have to pay for, I can pay for more outreach folks, less people to do reporting because it's just there. But also, my partner org, Roots Reborn, can throw their program on there and it's just one card for one person. It just gets loaded with whoever has the money and we can just set it up. So we've done that for cash assistance, but we've also built something on Relief Compass, which comes from Core Relief. I think that's what they're called. But Relief Compass is more for the essential goods. And we also share with another org, with Auntie Nettie and her org. And it's built to share. So it's built to say, okay, we don't have diapers, but we can figure out where those size 4 diapers are. And the app's actually built for the survivor. So it's looking for the diapers closest to wherever that survivor is. And then we take on picking it up and getting to them if that's what they need. So we're really designed to share. Yeah.
Thank you. So Jen, you came in 3 years after the organization was built, but you've run it for the past 4 years. And so I would like to note that I am coming up on my 8th anniversary. Your org has been around for 7 years. You were a lot around in COVID too, though. So, but we're going to call you 2 years post disaster for sure. And you're our freshie. Right here is Christine. And this is a very hard thing to do. But so Jen, talk about the values of the organization, but also like how do you navigate when most funders are super not interested in anything past the first 6 to 8 weeks because there's no fun collateral when you're like, doing a selfie in front of a gravel pit. So, but you're still desperately needed by fire survivors. So go ahead.
Our programs are 0% sexy. So
That should be their tagline. I love
Yeah.
that.
they're 100% impactful.
We're saving that for Jen. Absolutely. 0% sexy, 100% impactful. Put a pin in that. It's coming to you soon.
When I first started, I went on a walk with Charles Brooks, and he said this to me, and he said, always remember your why, and our why is for the betterment of our community. So every program we develop is for our specific need. And it is hard to find money for really nuanced needs because there's tons of grant money out there and they want their ideas, right? And how they would deliver it or do it. So when you ask money for rocks and it's never been asked, you get almost no money. But then when you have an idea that you know is right, you keep going even if you get 100 no's. Because we dug our heels in the ground and kept begging and pleading for money because the rocks were so much more than rocks. We have a gravel program that gives homeowners gravel to create zone 0, that first 5 feet of defensible space. We knew we were watching what was happening with insurance. We had a heavy gauge on it, and we knew that this simplest program could be highly impactful, and it was. It invited an insurance company to our community to see what we were doing from this very simple program. And that insurance company took 200 homeowners off the FAIR plan from rocks. And it wasn't just the rocks, it's the collective effort, right? We just shined the light on what our community was doing as a whole. And we kind of got the final step, the one thing that an insurer was still looking for. And 2 weeks ago, I got 3 no's for this program that is extraordinarily impactful. The internet world cannot grasp it. And then last week, I got PG&E said, I can't believe how simple and innovative this is. Here's $50,000. So one of the things that we hold high in our way of integrity is that I won't ever search for dollars and create a new program. What does our community need, and create a program and then go look for the money. It makes it harder, but it's actually what we need.
I would also I'm going to fluff this a bit too. So when I met Charles Brooks 10 days after his house had burned down, before that, he was a reusable green grocery bag salesman who had 2 young children and lost his home, loved his community so much. And from a friend of a friend, I invited him into a meeting with the mayor and the town manager in their temporary place, these flies, in Chico. And, because I was still in my trauma 13 months and 10 days later, I go, "Oh, well, I will help Charles Brooks set up one just like ours," right? And, he said that his Apple Watch, that his, blood pressure shot up to the sky, because I don't think that's what he, was intending for that meeting, and I would not do that again, by the way. That was part of my, amateur moment. We're all learning, learning, learning. But one of the things that I admire so much about Rebuild Paradise Foundation, and also when he chose Jen, he came to me and he said, I have really 2 people who are in the running for this job, and I'm going to choose the person who I'm sure has the biggest and best heart for it, because you can learn this work. You can learn it. You can learn the work of disaster. You can learn how to listen to people, but you have to actually have the right heart for it. And he knew right away that you had the right heart for it, which is very typical of how Rebuild Paradise has actually conducted themselves. They also had a septic tank program because the entire town of Paradise, including the business sector, is all on septic. And, mega fires destroy most septic tanks. And that's something people really needed to get home. And they've never been afraid of listening. I think this is something we're all sharing, is that if you actually listen to the community in front of you, they do tell you what it is that they need. And the issue with the funding is that people don't necessarily understand why a septic tank can be the difference between getting home and not. Those are really expensive. They also did a missing middle grant. And for people who didn't really qualify for anything, everything in between. And I know we've all seen this a lot. Like either if you're really, you're either destitute or whatever it is, but there's always this whole group in the middle that doesn't quite qualify for a lot of things. And Rebuild Paradise was like, okay, we're going to tackle that too. Same with the housing plan library. He also learned to fly a drone and to do surveys. And so one of the things that I think that we're all talking about here is our absolute dedication to becoming reverse engineers. So you see the problem and then you reverse back. And I'm so glad that you brought up the part of like if you chase the funding, you will not listen to survivors, no matter how much the funders intend that to be different. It just doesn't work that way. You will instead like wrap all of your programs about what they think you might need, which is not the same thing as what fire survivors need. They need things done for them, not more things done to them. And those are very, very different ways. They don't need charity, so to speak. They need dignity and agency in their own recovery. So it's very, very important. So I just wanted to fluff you up a little bit there some more. Okay. In this first blush of leadership in a post-disaster, what have you found to be most challenging?
I can think of many challenges. What is the most?
Oh, how about give us top 3? It's fine.
Top 3. The thing that's coming to mind for me is something I spoke about earlier, which is like, what is our lane? We know we want to add value and be impactful, not duplicate work, not create problems just for the sake of having something to solve, but really filling gaps and identifying what those gaps are with what our specific teams, positionality, skills, um, resources are best put to has been really hard and is really kind of ever changing. So that is really coming to the top for me. You didn't ask this, but I'm going to take it one step further, which is like how we try to navigate that is, everything we talked about earlier, really listening. But I cannot stress enough how important it's been to to ask for and get help, to lean on the wisdom of people who have done this before, but also people who have done this in different, I don't know, analogous scenarios. It doesn't have to be fire, but just people want to help and it doesn't even feel like vulnerability to just go up and ask them for it. And something that I try to keep in mind because something that I try not to be a burden. I just kind of want to get in there and do something and be helpful and be useful, which I suspect applies to a lot of us here. But something I really try to practice is asking for the help that I need, that we need, and letting people tell me if they don't have the time, but also everyone has shown up every single time, and it's been so powerful.
I love that. Nicole, what are your biggest challenges in leadership post-disaster?
That's another book. I think that trust isn't tested until there's tension. And so you can drop that word like we're building trust, but until you're sitting next to someone that's in a major trauma response and they're screaming, and no matter how much you've known them before, um, trust isn't built until that moment. And same goes for organizations and that tension between orgs and government, that tension between funders and what they decide are um, the problems they want to solve versus what are actually being solved right then and there. Those are all tension points. And if you have systems to get through tension, um, then then I think you'll build trust. But I have seen many points where people con it creates conflict instead of trust. Yeah.
Well, and you are in year 2. You are now entering into year 3, right? And so after in the first year, the first like blush of it, the first year is really all still response. It just is. And and that can be so frustrating, right? Because you're like, okay, let's do this. And also grieve this horrible thing that happened. So I testing that trust, especially when you thought you built it early on, and then all of a sudden, about around year 1 to into year 2, it gets a little crunchy, and people start competing for the same funds, and there gets to be a little bit of undermining, and that's why we have signs that say, "Fewer elbows, more hands." It's a very, very hard moment because like when you say if you and I were competing for the same fund, of course we would just want to split it and go out and like hold hands into the sunset. But it would absolutely test, like I have a mortgage to pay and you have to pay your rent. And also we want to pay the people that work for us and with us. But most of all, we want to continue to serve the people that we are committed to. And so a lot of that tension comes up like in the year that you just finished. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. And I can um, safely say I wouldn't share it with you. I'd just give it to you. And I would trust that
And then I would give it right back
no
to
no
you,
no because
Nicole.
I think that comes to like when you believe there's multiple forms of currency, there's more than just cash that is king, then you are going to trust in a system that's different. And so for me personally, as a leader, I'm going to take those big risks. That's where I want to take risks. Because I know you're gonna remember me that said, "Oh," there are people that I did that, and they're like, "Why? What strings are attached?" I'm like, "No, no way, not at all." They wouldn't receive it. And then others that are like, "What?" And then now they reach out to us. What do you need, right? Um and we build reciprocal relationships that way. But our world isn't designed for that. Our world is designed to move things quickly and transact. And so I think in my own leadership, it's making the risks I take are for relationship. And I might, but also as a leader, I can't do that with the team that I have without all of them buying in. And that's us doing our work to know our values together and, um, and slowing down to do that work that we couldn't have done that in year one, and we barely are doing that now. And but I do think um, that's on the plate for us. Yeah.
So Jen, what do you find your biggest challenges in leadership later in the process? Like,
Well, initially my biggest challenge was following the foots like Charles Brooks. For like weeks on end, all I heard was, "You have really big shoes to fill." And it took me a while to grasp that I wear my own shoes. And there's a reason that it took me about a year to like kind of believe that Charles and the board chose me not because I was Charles, because I was Jen and I had something else to offer in addition to what Charles already put in place, right? So, once believed in myself, then it kind of just unleashed this whole different part of Rebuild Paradise, the beauty of Charles and I, right? We all have something unique and different to offer. It's not necessarily better than one another. It's different. And more recently, my challenges as a recovering people pleaser, realizing that even if you're doing the right work, people don't like you.
there are people who don't like all of us up here, and we're okay with that.
Yeah. So just learning to keep going, stand your ground when people will throw rocks at you, literally. I probably had some ignorance in my position coming in, thinking like, I'm just walking in, like, yeah, look, this is fun, this is great. And then I'm like, oh gosh, what just happened? So learning to deal with when that happens and finding support has been extraordinarily important when you realize people don't like you.
Um, I actually this is a you I'm just gonna let this flow. When I got this job, my organization, not after the fire, because I'm the founder of that, but our parent organization, Rebuild North Bay, was founded by one of the most powerful people in the state of California, also one of the most polarizing. And he happens to live here in Sonoma, and he was a person though who got a lot of stuff done. Now, he is a lobbyist, a developer, and until recently owned literally all the media here too. And I understood that it was transactional why he chose me because he wanted the social capital, he wanted the reputation for integrity, he wanted somebody not polarizing. And that was pretty smart. And I really appreciated that he did like bounce me up into that space. But it also then I was pretty shocked to find out How many people actually thought, for example, he was my sugar daddy. I saw that a lot online. And, I mean, my husband thought, well, that's news to me. Um, and how many people would question my motives that why would you why would you work this hard to help your community rebuild unless you're secretly like lobbying for PG&E because they gave us $2 million to start and it was not they gave us no rules on it except don't give it to politicians and we never did anything for them. But the absolute like suspicion that is thrust upon people who do the work that we do, I find deeply insulting because if I were a third baseman, right, and I was making $22 million a year and you were sitting in the stands drinking your $20 beer with your, I don't know how much all that stuff costs because I'm not sporty, but I'm guessing. If you had paid a lot to get there, like nobody would be questioning my salary, my motives. They certainly wouldn't be thinking as a third baseman that I'm sleeping with the manager of the team. Like nobody thinks that. But as a woman, we are subjected to that for sure. But it's also sort of stunning when you're showing up to do what's right for your community and then people assign really awful assumptions to you. And for me, it was gutting. For me, it put me on the floor. For me, it put me on the floor, and my husband had to lay next to me and hold my hand as I cried because I was like, wait a minute, I love this place. I've done everything for this place, and all I'm trying to do is help it rebuild. So why am I the subject of next door? Do you know? By the way, that's why I keep next door to see if me and this other woman, Cheryl, she likes to terrorize everyone. So I go on there and terrorize her. But um, I found that stunning that I would be the subject of all of these comments online and even like fake news articles. All of these things were very stunning because I was trying to do the right thing. And I think that one of the things when we're walking through our communities, especially in the beginning, when people are like, wait a minute, I want you to be operational right away. I have these expectations of you right away. And when you have a powerhouse that starts you, like the co-founder of Snapchat, which I don't know if you've heard, but it's a little app. Um, and then Miguel Santana, then everyone thinks, oh, you must know exactly what you're doing right away. But the truth is that none of us knew what we were doing right away. It does not work that way. And if you walk into this work thinking immediately you know what you're doing, you are wrong. And that means you are not listening. You have to serve the community that is in front of you every single time. I had to learn 4 communities. That was really hard. Thank God for people like Jessica to teach me Lake County, and her predecessor to teach me what I might not like about Lake County, who made me trade my Volvo in for a truck. That was her predecessor. But it's very difficult because the expectations that you're supposed to know everything right away, they pop up. And one of the hardest lessons that I had to learn was that because I did not lose my home and I had survivor's guilt, what I didn't do was tell my story. What I didn't do was tell our story well. In fact, my husband pulled me aside about a year into this and said, um, honey, I love you. Your Facebook page is terrible. It is so boring. It's like, because I came from government, before then. Right. And so tennis, I worked with tennis at the county of Sonoma for years, but I worked for a supervisor. And so I only knew how to do boring, quite frankly. I never even had a public Facebook page before our fires. And so learning to tell the story, but also to lean on people like Tim Carpenter and Charles Brooks to get through when I wanted to quit. It was Charles Brooks who called me every day. And I'm going to swear. Okay, you ready? Because I was crying. And he's like, you're Jennifer fucking Gray Thompson. That's who you are. Okay, I'll call you tomorrow. And I'd be like, okay, thank you. And then Tim would call and they would listen to me over. But I had people who would come and sit with me and encourage me to stay. But you have to tell your story. And when you don't lose your home, it feels like you're making fire survivors into more content. And it's mortifying in this way. But if you look at what recently happened, like with Fire Aid, it did great work, but they were trying to be really polite and not tell their own story or make fire victims, fire survivors into fire victim porn, for lack of a better term. They did not want to do that. They wanted it to be that it was about them. But what happened is that then somebody else made up a story. And so I'm editorializing, but I think that this is so important that it's incredibly hard to tell the story of your org, but you have to do it. Like I follow religiously along with Maui Rapid Response, and once in a while you're like, so and so needs money, and then I'll just drop a little money in there or whatever. But I have to know. If I don't know, I'm not going to be able to help you, right? And Jen tells beautiful stories about gravel. So if you would like to see those and also send her money, but you're right in the very beginning of it, in the guilt phase of almost like, how do we even tell our story? So how are you grappling with that, like on social media, especially with a with a tech titan?
Thank you for the easy question. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know these questions, but I've been trying to read over your clipboard, but I can't see it. No, it's okay.
I'm not using any of my questions though. Yeah.
So it's it's hard. I think something that we learned is, it is really important for us because of where we're situated to really stand and back the survivors and really cultivate survivor leaders. I think something that is when the other side of that coin is that it can be like we're silent and then people fill the gaps, and that's very understandable. So that's actually something we're leaning into actively right now. Like, what is the story we are going to tell about us that is still lifting up survivors, but is actually telling what we're here to do, why, what our lane is, how precisely we want to be showing up for survivors while still not kind of being out in front, because that balance is very difficult to strike. We're still figuring it out, but that has been a hard early lesson to learn. On social media in particular, I mean, that's full of landmines. You mentioned Nextdoor, which is not a good place, generally speaking.
No one wants to live next door.
I think, you mentioned many books. I think there's many, many books to write about the state of our information ecosystem. We will not go into it, but please find me after. I'm happy to discuss. But just, how we like talk about ourselves. What is our voice? Like that is something we don't have figured out yet and are doing actively now.
And just as a side, because when you also have a powerhouse board like I did, I always felt like I was looking to them for the lead, for my leadership or the voice or what it should be. And then one day I turned around and I realized that I love them, but I know more than them about this subject. And so that was but that took me a long time to get there. And I actually had to have my booty handed to me before I really understood the value of of telling our story, and that people want to follow people. Like they can love a brand. Obviously, brands are great, but then they want to feel a connection. Like Sam just gave her talk, and so that like when you're thinking about Amazon or the work that they do, it's going to be Sam who's in your brain. Do you know? Like what's the impact of that? So I just think that that's a really important lesson.
I've actually had one more thing. If that's okay. Sorry, Nicole. I think one thing we've been trying to think about and project and we have to do is like, can we, because we have the backing that we do, like, can we be survivors, connected friend, and that to bring people to tables that they otherwise would not have access to? Is that something that we can do? We can, and we're trying. And that's something I think we want to really project and practice.
It's hard. And every disaster is different, and you have a double disaster too. So let's not overlook that they're for those of you who don't know, these disasters are 1 hour away from each other. These are not right up against each other, and so serving both is really a challenge geographically too. Social media.
Oh, it's not me. I got pulled off of that real fast.
Whoever it is
But I
is
think,
doing the job.
you mentioned though too, like, we are not a traditional charity. We are a mutual aid network. And so if we are like you said, we often post stories. It's because we've actually went through our whole network and couldn't solve the issue. We went through the system and couldn't solve the issue. And by the time we get to social media, like there's a strategy behind that. By the time we get to social media, it's because all else has failed. And then we will work to get consent from that person if they're okay with their Venmo or if it needs to go through ours because there's shame a little bit. But we've built our social media around the voice of those that don't have one. And
You've leveraged it. Like, we think
Yeah.
of social media as it's kind of, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but it can be quite toxic and dangerous. And but it's hard to take something it can be so harmful, that also to turn it into such a positive tool to actually help the people that you serve.
Yeah.
And that is just such a struggle, especially after a disaster.
Um, we have some really good like 25-year-olds on our team. They're great at it. And um we're really truthful with ourselves, right? Like especially if we're working with the unsheltered, that's not a comment section you want to be in. Or let me say that different. For a long while, we were like, just don't put anything up because it's so bad. And when you get to apps like Nextdoor or other just, apps where you can complain a lot, it's proven over and over and over again that people are going to complain about those in poverty and going to be very racist. So we were really honest with ourselves and said, well, then what do we want to do? And we wanted to create content where at least 25% of the comments started a conversation. And we didn't want to lead that conversation. We just wanted to ask questions. And so that's our strategy right now. And we also, by doing that, take a lot of heat, but not nearly as much heat as, say, Lahaina Strong has taken and others have taken, and completely unwarranted and not okay.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Lahaina Strong for sure, because it's been very hard to love them, very hard to watch what's being done to them. So, Jen, how do you use social media?
We're really intentional with social media. So we pay attention to the questions that are asked around us. So, like, Paradise, just everyone wants to know how Paradise is doing, right? So we try to answer that by showing homes and life and humans there. If you Google Paradise, California, the first thing that comes up is, does Paradise, California still exist? So we answer that question through a video. We show the life and the people living there. So we have a very active presence. Um, and more recently, we as leaders, we have to continually learn and do things we might not necessarily want to. And I learned that LinkedIn is the best social media platform to help with fundraising and connections, way more than Instagram and Facebook. Think about the people that are on LinkedIn, right? Versus face, it's great to have teenagers following us. They don't have funding. So I worked really hard to build LinkedIn presence. And in that, we posted a video of a homeowner that has incredible landscaping, but great defensible space. This video got the eyes of a different insurance company, Capital Insurance Group. And this one video got this company now who's come to our community twice and will start writing policies this fall. So you better get on LinkedIn.
Actually, that's a really good choice. And while I wax you on for a moment, I do want one final comment from each of you about what you wish that you had right now in your stage of leadership from other people. But I'm going to say this too for the rest of you. And it's really important to understand your channels. LinkedIn is actually the most effective disaster organization platform you can possibly use for this group, for a peer group, for people to know what you are doing. And I never really used it before the pandemic because I just didn't understand it. Instagram is for young people and old people who are cool. But most of the time, older people use Facebook. So again, meet people exactly where they are at. We do not use Twitter because it's gross. But so we're trying to use Threads a little bit. But those other three, though, don't ignore them because you don't like them, because it's where people are or where you need to go. So I think I'm so glad that you mentioned that. It's a very big deal. So what I'd like you to do, Christine, do you want to go last or first? Okay. What do you wish you had right now for your leadership? What could you use? What would fill you?
We are needed all the time by so many people from state and the state to other states. Everyone wants to use Rebuild Paradise photos that have extraordinary landscaping that are defensible. And everyone needs us, and no one wants to fund us. So we need funding.
I would like to amen on that. Being a 7-year post disaster, because see, we went national 5 years ago. So we have struggled. We're fine right now, but I really need you all to hear that we need the gens and we need these people to stay in the work, which means that we need people to lean into the unsexy, because again, we're all filling the needs that people really, really need who are on the ground. Nicole.
I need my team. I need every team that has been on the ground and not been able to stop to get a month or to get even a week where there's no, just nervous system reset. And I don't know if that's going to happen. And I think when I went to LA with you guys, it was really clear from other fire survivors and response folks that year 3 is mentally very hard. And I'm funding, yes, but I think we'll be fine. We're designed to be fine. I think in terms of Maui does need funding and like the land trust and help me right.
This is so typical.
I know.
Nicole.
I mean,
She's gonna take.
I just need time.
else.
I personally need time. I need a vacation. I need a break.
Fair.
And
You need to tap out for a
I
minute.
think I need to tap out, but more so is our teams. Like from every single team that has been there since the community hubs to day one, to all survivors just need some time to catch a breath, catch a few deep breaths, and that's just not there right now that I can see.
But now that you've said it, who knows? Go ahead, Christine. What do you need?
I was going to say time as well when Katie yesterday was saying that something about sprinting through an ultra marathon that hit deep. It's really felt like that for this whole year, and it's sprinting. It's an ultra marathon, and by the way, the what's it called? The path is not set. So are you going this way? Or are you going this way? Do you need to go 5 different ways? Like that feeling is constant. And out of that comes meaning and joy and moving forward. But it's exhausting and chaotic and enraging and all those things that we've been talking about over these last days. And I think if I'm going to capture all of like what I need out of that, it's time, because everything is urgent. But how do we make the hard choices to prioritize in the way that is really going to, in the long run, move the ball forward? Something that I've heard you say is going slow to go fast later. And that's so hard to practice when there are just so many pressures around you, not to mention just the very pressure of disaster recovery in and of itself.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure. And I'm going to finish us on this one, which is to say that what I need is for all of you to make sure that you take advantage of the people in this room, that you find your own people, that you find your way through it, and you recognize that absolutely none of us are doing this alone. It is by very nature of it a group project. Period. End of story. You just cannot be a savior. You cannot be a hero. That you have to lean on each other. And there's so much talent here. So make sure that you are finding your people. And thank you so much for having us and being here. Okay.